confuse things between what the security did and what the revolution did. That could be a start that we can see somebody like Anas al-Firi removed, and we see an independent committee over supervising the TV and the media and the radios and the press. Another thing is if we could see serious people at the negotiation table, if we could see somebody like Dr. Baradei, like Hamdin Sabahi, like Ayman Noor, like the youth from that square, the youth who did that, that revolution. But all we can see are the old faces, which have always been working with the government.
Yeah, Mohammed al-Baradei wasn't even invited to those talks. Why not?
Sorry?
Mohammed al-Baradei was upset because he wasn't invited to those talks. Why not?
Because the regime doesn't want to bring any serious contenders. It wants to bring people it thinks it can control for one reason or another. Baradei and the National Association for Change, Ayman Noor, Hamdin Sabahi, and many others announced that the first they would only go to negotiation when at least the first demand is met, which is for President Mubarak to step down or at least publicly delegate his authorities to Vice President Suleiman. But as it is now, it's buying time and stalling for time and thinking that we can deceive the people. Not so. I think the people have came and shown a remarkable awareness, and they will not be deceived by such ploys.
Okay, good to talk to you. Wael Nawara, the Secretary General of Al-Had Party there. Let's go to Barak Barfi, who's a research fellow for the New America Foundation, who also joins me on the line now from Cairo. Good to have you with us. What do you make of the talks between opposition groups and the government? We've just had Wael Nawara there saying that there are no signs that the government is sincere about change and it's just wanting to buy time. Do you agree with that?
Well, I'm not sure I agree 100% with what he said. I think there has been some progress made in the talks. First of all, there is talk now that I'm hearing today that they are going to form a constitutional committee, that Omar Suleiman, the new vice president, has agreed to form a constitutional committee to review changes, possible changes to the Constitution, amending certain clauses. Specifically, the opposition wants Article 76, 77, and 88 to be amended. These would allow the opposition parties to participate in the political process. They are also asking for the abolishing of the state emergency laws. The parties are meeting with them have put forward 8 demands, among them Mubarak's resignation and dismissing parliament. Suleiman is not ready to do this yet, but he is talking about allowing international observers for elections. And in another meeting with protesters from Liberation Square, he promised to change the tone of state television.
What about the one constant demand from protesters, though, that Hosni Mubarak steps down? The problem with this is there would then have to be elections within 60 days, and a lot of people are saying there's simply not time to organise democratic elections in that time.
Well, that's simply not a feasible option. That is what the protesters in Tahrir Square and Liberation Square are saying. I was there last night, and that's what I heard. That was the #1 demand. But at this point in time, the army is reluctant to push Mubarak out of power, seeing him as one of their own. Remember, he is a career military man, being commander of the Air Force. Omar Suleiman has told people that it is out of the question to force a hero of the 1973 war against Israel out of power, deeming it a humiliation.
But you've seen the mood of the people in the square. Do you think anything less will be acceptable to them? Can they be reasoned with? Is there an alternative that can be reached?
At this point in time, they are not willing to concede their #1 demand that Mubarak resign immediately. They are adamant in this, and they say that they will stick it out, according to the people that I spoke to last night. However, protesters in the square today say that now the army is creating difficulties for them. They say there is an attempt to prevent food reaching the square, and people said earlier in the day shots were fired in the air by soldiers trying to restrict the protesters from increasing their presence in Liberation Square.
Do you think that would be a turning point if the army started making moves to end the protest?
Look, it's a double-edged sword. On one hand, they could instill much fear in the protesters and make life very difficult for them by trying to clear out the square. On the other hand, if the Egyptians here in Cairo see that the army is moving against these peaceful protesters, they may be emboldened to join them. So it's difficult to say what could happen at this point in time if the army moved in.
I suppose the key point is whether the government will show that it's sincere in wanting to change by making changes on state television. I mean, can it do other things? Can it lift the emergency law, for example?
That is one of the first things that it can do, is by lifting the emergency laws. That would please many, many people. We've also seen the appointment of Hussam Badrawi, leading reformer of the ruling National Democratic Party, to the post of Secretary General and leader of the political steering committee within the party. He has for a long time, called for the abolishing of these state of emergency laws and for other reforms. Unfortunately, his nomination comes a little bit too late for the ruling party to salvage anything out of here. The only thing that we can hope for is a stable and smooth transition of power at this point in time.
So what's the next step? These protests just continue?
Well, what I'm hearing from people in the know here in Cairo that have spoken to leading constitutional lawyers, there is a clause 139 in the Constitution that, if it is amended, can allow Vice President Omar Suleiman to assume most of President Mubarak's powers. At that point in time, he can dissolve Parliament, call for new elections, and pave the way for a democratic transition. This is what people are saying that the opposition and Suleiman are discussing at this point in time. And that's why this recent decision today to form this constitutional committee to review amendments to the Constitution is a very, very key and a big step moving forward.
Okay, Barak, thank you very much indeed for that update. Barak Barfi from the New America Foundation there speaking to us. If you're just joining us, live pictures coming out of Cairo Liberation Square. We can see on the left of the screen there thousands of protesters gathering, and to the right you can see the tents which have sprung up, a clear indication that people are planning to be in this square for the long haul. Our correspondent Hoda Hamid has been watching events. Hoda, just tell us what's going on now.
Well, at the moment, the prayer for the soul, or the prayer for the dead, that sort of symbolic prayer for the journalist who was killed on the 28th of January, just finished, and then the crowd just broke into singing the national anthem, and now they're back into saying, "We want the fall of Mubarak, leave, invalid, invalid." Certainly a lot of energy on the square now. The minute that symbolic coffin entered the square, it really rallied everyone on the square around that coffin, and now probably you will see it on the picture. The coffin is making its way again through the crowd towards the camera. I hope you can see that. It's surrounded by, I would say, thousands of people cheering it, still demanding for the president to go, still demanding for people power.
Can you make out from where you are the wife and daughter of Ahmad Mahmoud, who are in the crowd somewhere leading the procession, I think?
I'm sorry, but from where I am, it's very difficult to figure
It is very difficult to see, isn't it?
The procession. It is very jammed. It's full of people. It's just impossible.
But, I mean, one of the key things coming out of this is people's anger at the way the government reacted to the protests in those early days. I mean, we haven't seen the police since those early clashes in the first days of the protests. The government has now kept the police off the streets because of the anger at the way they dealt with protesters.
I think it's anger, sure, but it's also bottled up suppression, if you want. People now saying, see, we were right all along, and now that the whole world has seen it, they feel strong about it. The Egyptian people always felt they were sort of forgotten. They always felt that as long as the United States, they think, was supporting President Hosni Mubarak, there's nothing that they could do that would actually help them. So this is a moment where really all the repressed feelings that they had are coming out. And I have to tell you, many people told me they were very, very much surprised of the reaction of the security forces last week and the brutality it showed, because they thought that that was a way the government was actually shooting itself in the foot. And it actually did, because then it drew so much international condemnation. But it was a moment that took everybody by surprise. I spoke to many of the sort of original pro-democracy protesters, and they told me they did not expect things to go that way. They were hoping their voice would be heard loud and clear, but they did not expect it to be so loud and so clear and to actually draw the support of so many people.